Hi Founder fans, Jason here, and today's founder is Lund Washington, a cousin to George Washington, who was the caretaker of Mount Vernon during the Revolutionary War. Now, Lund Washington was just 27 years old when in 1764 he was asked by future General George to come take over as steward, as it's known, of Mount Vernon. Now, Lund had at this point already been a caretaker on a different estate, and his older cousin, who was also his fox hunting buddy, requesting his help, was an offer he could not refuse. So he does. He comes over, takes over total operations of Mount Vernon, which does include overseeing the slaves on the property, but also includes overseeing really most of the business on the property. He ends up continuing in this position when General George is finally made General George and goes a revolutioning up first in Boston, then throughout the colonies with the Continental Army. Interestingly, Lund Washington's name becomes known throughout the colonies during the Revolution, through no fault of his own. There were some forgeries published in New York that claimed to have been George Washington writing home to Lund, complaining about Continental Congress and how terrible it was, and the Revolution in general. This is dumb. Why are we even doing this? Lund got a little bit of backlash, even though he was simply the recipient of fake letters that were never actually sent. So take that with whatever grain of salt you like. Lund, for his part, was still operating Mount Vernon when in 1781 the British showed up. They sailed up the Potomac, destroying the mansions of the wealthy Virginians who supported the Revolution, of which, you might be not surprised to realize, George Washington was one. Now, the thing is, General Graves, who shows up, he actually had great respect for George Washington and brought Lund out of the house and called him out and said, hey, listen, I don't want to destroy George Washington's property. If you give me a few provisions, then I'll be on my way and leave the property. To which Lund said, no, George Washington knew what he was getting into. Set fire to the mansion, please. Now, Graves goes back to his ship and then again calls Lund back out and says, hey, listen, bud, I don't want to destroy George Washington's house. Please, come on up, come board my ship. We'll have some snacks. We'll chit-chat and have a good time. Maybe you'll reconsider. And after a while, Lund did reconsider, and he ends up giving a significant helping of provisions to the British, and this actually includes about a dozen of the enslaved persons living at Mount Vernon. Now, Graves leaves, and Mount Vernon's fine. General George Washington finds out about this, and he is not thrilled. Now, first of all, I can't be seen giving my private things to the British. That is absolutely out of the question, said George. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And additionally, what is it going to look like when all of my friends and neighbors had their houses burned by the British, and mine's okay? It certainly seems pretty shady. Now, fortunately for everyone, the Battle of Yorktown was just a few months later, and after which the whole thing essentially blows over. Everyone's kind of fine with it. The slaves are actually returned from the British. There is a letter from Lund to George saying that they escaped and returned, although that's a little bit questionable. They may have simply been returned, unfortunately, for them. But as for the estate, everything, no one really knows anymore. Now, Lund stays on for many years after this as continuing as caretaker of Mount Vernon. And even though George wasn't very happy his house was not destroyed during the war, us as students of history, we are pretty fortunate to have such a significant home in American history still standing today and still there for you to visit. So that is a brief overview of the life of Lund Washington, continuing our discussion of George Washington's relatives this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do me a favor and hit like so more people can learn about the American Revolution along with us. If you're new here, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so it lets you know. I do a bunch of live videos throughout the week too, and if you like this, you might like Trivia on Friday, so come on out to that. I'll be back with another founder for you tomorrow.